Hi, my name's Ian Bandy. I'm from Seattle, Washington, and this is my build of the Lost Battalion from 1918. The Lost Battalion is basically an American battalion made up of 9 companies led by Charles Whittlesey that got lost during the Argonne Forest campaign in 1918, and they got cut off and surrounded by the Germans behind enemy lines, and they held out for 7 days without food and water. And this is basically depicting one of the famous paintings that was painted in 1921 by, I can't remember the painter's name, he's Polish. But I tried to recreate it as good as possible to the main painting. As you can see, we got the German with the flag right here, and the Americans in the trench with the fire and explosion in the background, all the trees. So I did take some creative liberty just because I wanted to depict the beautiful forest of the Argonne and the destruction of war. So that's kind of the general overview, but yeah.
Did you look at photos of this region today at all as inspiration, or where all did you kind of draw that inspiration from outside of just the painting?
Mainly, I looked at primarily just the painting because there's not a lot of photos of the actual company that got encircled, just because it's 1918. As cameras are very heavy. But the other source material, I guess I could say, for kind of how I did it was there's a YouTuber who did a really good overview, like with Google Maps and whatnot, of like the actual like hill that they were cut off and surrounded on. So that was kind of my only other like source, I guess, for this, but it was primarily just the painting.
And as we dive into the build here, are there specific soldiers that you've depicted throughout the build? Take us through some of the minifigures and the layout on this side.
If I remember correctly, this German, right, I think he's a German, I'm 90% sure, is one of the Germans that they captured. And what they did was they had him go back to the German lines, and it was like trying to get them to like surrender or whatnot. And he came back and he's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And then other than that, the painting doesn't really show any specific American. I know Charles Whittlesey would probably be around right here or here, but other than that, it's kind of just the general painting. So,
Yeah. So for the minifigures, what types of parts did you use to kind of create this World War I look with them, with the weapons and the uniforms?
so most of the minifigures, like the torsos themselves, are actually Lego minifigure torsos. I don't know exactly which set or like what's the name for them. I just found them on Bricklink, but they work pretty well. Other than that, we got a few brick fabric capes, I think, right here and here. And other than that, you got brick arms Brody helmets and brick arms weapons and whatnot. So most of it is, I try to be as pure as possible now, but obviously World War I stuff is kind of hard to come by, especially third-party stuff like Brickmania and CB and all that. But for the most part, it's all actual Lego, except for the helmets and all that. So, and same with the Germans.
And beyond the trenches, we do move to the Germans over here, which you've represented with just a few minifigures. So take us to kind of that part of the map, which has this massive explosion going on.
Yeah, sure. So over here, we got the Germans coming up, and you can't see them in the painting, but I wanted to kind of depict their hopeless situation because it was kind of amazing how they held out as long as they did. So the real like setting or backdrop of this is obviously the smoke and the fire, which was very interesting to build. There's quite a lot of interesting techniques. Like we got like the ball, I don't know what the name for them are, like ball joints or pieces, but those were I've never really seen anyone do that style before, but I think it came out pretty decent. It's on like a Travis brick, and you got like the leaf pieces, like the stem, like 6x6 leaf pieces, and you just stick them on there. So it works pretty good. I like it. It's just a pain to set up at the convention. I spent 3 hours doing it, so.
Very impressive.
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know. I like to over detail, so it's a process. I mean, the trees and smoke are definitely my favorite part. It was just, I don't know. I've been always fascinated with the Lost Battalion for so long, and I've been wanting to do this build for at least 5 years. So to do it and actually have it at a convention is just such a honor for me, honestly, and especially to be with Rebel Lug. So it's pretty cool. But I don't know. It's just I think Lego is a great way to tell history to like the younger generation and get them into it, because a lot of times, kids don't want to sit in class and like read a book and be like, oh, this is boring. When they can just come to a convention and actually see it in person, like understand the situation of the soldiers. And it's a great way to tell history, especially the younger generation. So, yeah.
Absolutely, and using a medium like Lego that they're already a fan of and interested in, they can kind of connect with it a lot more that way. So I think you're absolutely correct. You mentioned the trees earlier. Take us through some of the different designs here, because one thing I noticed is they're fairly precarious. Most of these are just one stud wide trees. So are they staying up easily? How does that work?
They actually stay up pretty easy. The only ones that are kind of iffy are the flex tube trees over there, which was interesting to build. Those are my first attempts ever building anything like that, so I think they came out pretty good. But for the most part, they're pretty sturdy. These dark green ones are. It's weird. It's weird how I built them, but they're pretty sturdy. I just wanted to get a variation of like the forest. I mean, technically, all the trees should be dark green, but creative liberty. I don't think anyone's really going to care that much. So, yeah. And same with the actual green should be dark green, but with the olive green, I was kind of like, that would not mix so well. So it's fine. No one's really going to care. So, yeah. I mean, it came together. I mean, there are some things I would like to change. Like, I think I could have done better on some of the trees, and some of it's iffy, but I mean, it came all together pretty well. So, yeah.
And you said how much you love the details, and I think that really stands out in the trenches here, where you've got these kind of winding paths. So when you started the build, do you lay that out on paper or anything like that, or you just kind of free build and see how the trenches come together?
I used to free build, and the more and more I've got older and the more and more building experience I've got, the more and more I kind of just go off of paintings or photos or whatnot. So I kind of just started with looking at the painting, seeing where the trench line is, and the trench isn't 100% accurate to the painting, but just due to size and space constraints. But I think I got it pretty dang close. I mean, with all the coloring and whatnot. But I mean, for the most part, it's just most of the trenches are just sitting there like that. So, except for the dugouts, which I really like the dugouts. Those were really hard to figure out how to do. You can kind of see my first attempts over here and here, until I figured out that here I can show you actually. So most of them are just sitting come on, pop out. Or just sitting like that, just slanted, which I think is a very interesting way of doing it. It's kind of a pain to set up, but it definitely helps it kind of slope in, which is very hard to get with Lego. They don't really make pieces other than this for that. So, yeah. But it came together pretty good. I mean, it's definitely one of my most detailed builds I've put time into. I mean, I really just wanted to give the Lost Battalion and the boys of the Lost Battalion the recognition they deserve for their heroism, and yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty proud of it.
Is this a scene you could see yourself adding on to in the future and maybe creating a larger landscape?
Possibly. Maybe. The most I would maybe do is expand the trenches maybe, or the forest with I could actually do the German line. I don't know. I got a lot of plans coming up, so the closest I might come to doing anything like this is Bella Wood for 2026 Brick Fair. So we'll see where that comes, but I don't know about this build. It might not leave my house after this one.
For people who do want to see more of your work, where do you normally display your builds at in person, and then are you active online? How do you do that?
Yeah, so obviously I'm with Rebel Oak, so I'll always be displaying with them, and then my Instagram handle is right here, Lazy Bricks. I'm on Instagram, Flickr, YouTube, whatnot, so yeah, just hit me up if anyone wants to come see my builds, so yeah.
Fantastic work. Thank you for taking us through the fascinating history here, and then the incredibly detailed build that you've put together. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.